It's been a busy week in politics, from a controversial decision by Wayburn City Council to the Brandt building in Wascana Park being put on hold. To talk about all of this, I'm joined by CBC political reporter Adam Hunter. Adam, let's start with the decision by Wayburn Council. Those sorts of things don't often come up in the Ledge, but it did this week. Tell us about that.
It's pretty rare for local councils, whether they're cities or towns, for their issues to be raised in the legislature. Now, this wasn't raised in question period. It was raised after by journalists who wanted to hear from the Minister of Social Services, Paul Merriman, whether he talked to the Wayburn City Council, what his advice to them was. We talked to him on Wednesday after the story kind of broke nationally, and he said he was planning to talk to them. Then on Thursday, he did talk. He says the mayor stood by the decision. They said that they followed their own process. They regretted the comments they made. And we were able to ask Merriman a bit more. He said he was very disappointed with their decision. But here's a bit more of what the Minister of Social Services said yesterday.
I think the concerns of safety, parking are not valid. My concern would be, what if a family moved in and bought that lot and had 3 intellectually challenged children? Now what would they do? What would they do when all of a sudden somebody moves in and buys that lot, not a group home, and they're sitting there and now they have 3 intellectually or physically disabled children across the street from them? What are they going to do at that point? Are the 10 or 12 people that are in Wayburn going to decide, no, we don't want those people on our street again? I think this is a question that mayor and council have to answer, and they have to answer to the people that voted them in.
Now, you heard there the minister's asking, it's a pretty pointed question of what the council would do if there were a family with someone with intellectual disability move into a neighborhood. Would they be able to veto that family moving in? It sets a bad precedent. That was something that the MLA, Dustin Duncan, was worried about. He said he never had a complaint about a group home in Wayburn in the entire time he's been an MLA there. He said quite the opposite. People were wanting more group homes in their neighborhoods. They added to the vibrancy and the color, and they enriched the neighborhood. So that's a bit of what the government has said and reacted. They're not going to go as of right now and make the council reverse their decision.
Not the only controversial topic raised this week in the legislature. We talked a little last week about the Brandt building in Wascana Park in Regina, and we now know that that has been halted. What can you tell us about that?
Yeah, so last week the NDP had asked the government to hold off on having the Brandt CNIB build go ahead until after the provincial auditor had made her report. Now, the auditor decided on her own to look into this. It's not a special audit. It's part of her annual report. We don't know the parameters of that quite yet. It's supposed to be released in December, but on Monday, the government came back and said, we're going to go with, not giving the NDP credit, but saying we're going to go with this. We're going to wait until the auditor has put everything out there, and then we'll decide to proceed. Now, since then, we've heard reporting from our Jeff Leo, the architect who was removed from the PCC architecture board, saying that this wasn't in keeping with the park's framework. We've heard now Brandt saying that he should apologize. So the story's still going on, despite the fact that now the project's on hold at least until December, probably into 2020.
Well, we'll hear more about that, and also next week is a big week. The budget is coming out. What can you tell us, first looks at this upcoming budget?
Yeah, it's going to be interesting. We've heard going back about 3 years now that the government says they have a 3-year plan to get back to balance. And all this week in question period and afterwards, the last 2 weeks really, the government's been saying, and the finance minister, we're going to have a balanced budget. We're going to have a balanced budget. Now they have to cut about $300 million from their deficit to get to that balance. We'll wait and see what that's going to be. There's some speculation on whether that's going to mean cuts or higher taxes, or whether the economy is improving like the government says it is, and maybe they can make some cuts other places. So we'll have to wait and see. That's Wednesday. We'll be live on Facebook on about 2 in the afternoon till probably almost 4 o'clock, bringing all the reaction from the Rotunda and plenty of coverage both online, on TV, and on the radio. Tons of budget coverage from here at CBC Sask.
It will be something to watch. Thank you so much for this, Adam.
You're welcome.